Thank you so much for joining us today. We first spoke to you back in 2022 after the release of your third book, Making Love to the Land. Can you tell us about your most recent work, Indigiqueerness, and how this is different from your previous work?
Yeah, Indigiqueerness came out of my writer in residency with the University of Athabasca during the lockdown periods. And I kind of think of it as the Too Long Didn't Read, Making Love with the Land 2.0 edition, I suppose. But really kind of came out of just like a whole archive of my life as a writer there in Treaty 1, right? In Selkirk, Manitoba, which is where I kind of spend most of my life, in Winnipeg, also a bit of Peguis as well, which is my home nation. And really just thinking about storytelling practices, what it means to me, what it means to be, an OGQ writer from Treaty One, and also what it means to be a Two-Spirit writer. So I had a lot of fun with it. And we got to include a lot of really interesting, important photos, such as, the lockdown measures that were taken in Peguis, as well as a lot of the flooding that happens there as well. So I was really happy to include the visuals alongside the written word with that edition of it.
Can you tell us what you're currently working on now?
So I'm working on two projects right now. I am just finishing up a Two-Spirit horror story for the next anthology of Never Whistle at Night, which is an Indigenous horror anthology. And it's my first foray into horror. I'm a big horror film fan, so I'm a horror buff. I love Halloween, so I was very excited to dip my hands into a new genre. And my next big project that is just of my own is a Two-Spirit apocalypse novel, which takes place between here in Treaty 7 Mohkinstsis, also known as Calgary, and southern Manitoba, Starmound, Manitoba, if folks have ever visited there. And comes from a lot of my research and, just like, I guess, my studies and conversations I've had with community and in literature around star people. So it's kind of made me a little bit of a, Uncle Facebook conspiracy theorist, thinking so much about aliens or star people and other non-human entities like Bigfoot, little people. But it's been such fun so far, and I'm just finishing it. I know my editor and publisher, Knopf Canada, are eagerly awaiting. And thankfully, I have this year off from teaching, so I get to finish that for you folks.
That definitely sounds interesting. I mean, a lot of the Indigenous legends happen around those things. So where do you get your inspiration for your writings?
It's twofold, I guess. I would say like my first three books, Full Metal Indigiqueer, Johnny Appleseed, and Making Love with the Land, are what I would kind of call biotextual writing, which really just means that, it's fiction, it's nonfiction, it's poetry, but it draws a lot from my experiences, my joys, my loves, my losses, my pains and traumas. Which worked wonderfully for those books, but it is exhausting to continually keep, excavating memory for the sake of crafting these books. So a lot of it came from personal experiences, familial experiences, community experiences for those three books. This one's a little bit of a different foray. It is purely fiction. There's a little bit of me in it, but I am not attached to it so integrally. And for this one, I'm drawing just a lot of inspiration from, as you say, like the legends, the stories that we all share, which, we all come from different nations. I'm from Peguis, but I'm here in Treaty 7 on Blackfoot Confederacy. And they also share stories of, you lose the remote, you blame the little people, right? You're on the trap line, you see Bigfoot. Everyone has a star people or alien story. And so I've just been drawing a lot around, these stories that we share. And then some of our creation stories too. And for me, the big one with this forthcoming book comes from the Anishinaabe word Bagunagijig, which means the holes in the sky, and also the Cree word Bagonagisik, which also means the holes in the sky, which are creation stories of these giant cedar trees that would pierce kind of what we might call like the heavens or into the fourth world, where Sky Woman fell from, and ancestors crawling down them, these giant trees to kind of come to Earth. So I've been getting a lot of inspiration from our traditional stories with this one, and then infusing them with Two-Spirit lives here now in the contemporary sense, and what it would mean for maybe Two-Spirit characters who are, are messy, are struggling to make rent, the world has ended, and they have to take this long trek from southern Alberta to southern Manitoba, and what that would look like. Because I didn't often see that. So yeah, a lot of inspiration from myself, my community, the stories my family tells, in the garage when everyone's having their late night smoke. And then also just from traditional stories that I've just had the great honor and privilege to hear, to listen, and to read too.
Definitely hear stories when the aunties and uncles gather. What do you hope that Indigenous and non-Indigenous community will take from your work?
For me, it's really important that, I make space for, my Two-Spirit brethren and sisterin across Turtle Island, or North America, as we call it. And so I really want them to be seen, to be heard, to be represented in healthy ways that are not always just like noble and stoic, but we are also messy people. We are chaotic, we are lively and fun and sexy. And so it's important for me to show that on the page as much as I try to exemplify that in my life. And so what I hope Indigenous folks and non-Indigenous folks take from that is, just making space for those we might call now contemporarily queer or trans or gender nonconforming, right? Or LGBTQ within our own communities, making space for them and those who are not Indigenous and not of our communities to know that, we have a long history on this island that predates a lot of things that we might consider gay or queer history now, right? Such as the Stonewall riots of '69. Very important for, queer life here on Turtle Island for settlers, but Two-Spirit's histories arc back so much further. 1969 is yesterday in our history rather than this longevity. So wanting to show, that we've always been here, that we are still here, and even though we have been targeted since, the docking of powers on this island since 1492, that we are still thriving and still succeeding and still helping to heal ourselves and the communities too.
Yeah, thank you for that. I look forward to it, and thank you for taking up space and making space.
Thank you so much for having me. I do have to say that I think my parents are single-handedly keeping Twilight going on APTN. They love to watch the Twilight series, so thank you, APTN, for having me and for all that you do. Miigwech.